Welcome back, True Seeker. Thursday, January 18th, 2024. Want to go over some of the top headlines today. And also, something came across my plate today that it's one of those things that I can't believe I didn't know it already. And it's something that makes me glad I hadn't finished my book yet because it's just like something that probably belongs on the opening pages of the book. And all these years, just something so obvious that I did not know. So we'll get to that as well. But yeah, in the headlines today, the Department of Justice comes out with a report on the Uvaldi shooting. They got to put this back in front of the nation's face. There's absolutely nothing new to this story. It's just the same story brought back again for the psychological impact as they try to emotionally whittle people out of their rights and liberties, getting people to say, oh, yeah, maybe we should give up the Second Amendment, the thing that was given to us to protect us from tyrants, foreign and domestic. And of course, they are here ruling over us, but most people are blind because these tyrants wrap themselves in the flag. Anyhow, the Uvalde report's back, and we're going to talk about why it's back today. Yesterday, on Michelle's 60th birthday, a New York Post columnist wrote why Michelle could become the Democratic nominee. And remember, we talked about this in 2022, the significance of her book coming out November 15th that year, 103 weeks to the day of the election. If you weren't with us back then, we'll revisit that. I also want to talk about what just went down in my home city, Portland, with the power going out January 13th, the same day Tucker Carlson had a show that the power grid is going down, warning people to be ready. A lot of Portland, Oregon did not have power restored until today, including my sister. So they were without power for much of the week while the temperature is at a record low. Again, it's colder than in Portland for the last week than it's ever been in my lifetime. And you might recall a few years back, we predicted why on Valentine's there'd be blackouts all over the nation. It happened in Portland, Houston, Atlanta, and elsewhere. Talk more about this and the significance of Portland finally restoring the power today on January 18th. In the news today on 118. Again, if you're new here, 118 is a very fateful number, but world champion pole vaulter dead today. We'll talk about why this is in the headlines today. He actually died yesterday, but it's today's news. We'll talk about the very obvious ritual with Sean Barber, RIP. Also in the news today, Melania Trump's funeral. We talked about the significance, or did I say Melania Trump's funeral? Her mother's funeral was today. Last week, we were talking about the significance of the day that her mother died. Now we'll talk about the significance of the day of the funeral. And then all this time, I've never talked about the actual Jesuit Order's headquarters. And it's right across the street of the headquarters of Freemasonry for Italy. And again, just the numbers on these buildings, it'll blow your mind, but then at the same time, it won't surprise you at all. So anyway, let's start right here with Uvalde. Notice from the May 24th, 2022 shooting, remember it was on the 144th day of the year, about a week after the Tops massacre in Buffalo, New York, which came 144 days after the death anniversary of Peter Canisius. And Canisius University is just down the street from the Tops. And of course, 144 is the number of the Jesuits, and Canisius is a Jesuit. But anyhow, from the shooting to then bringing this up today, January 18th, it's 19 months and change. And remember, they said 19 children were killed while 19 cops stood down in the hallway. That was the initial story, a whole lot of 19. And as we talked about then, Robb Elementary School, the children were robbed of their lives at Robb Elementary, but ROBB has that gematria of 19, just like chaos. And for years, we've educated about the chaos code, order out of chaos, the 19-year cycles. We've had a lot of accurate predictions over the years involving 19, and including knowing why 2020 was going to be such a bad year way before COVID-19 came around, because it was 19 years after 9/11 and the 19 hijackers. But notice how the BBC summed up today's story. Chaos and confusion, which, by the way, in gematria, that line equals 181. Like how the date's 18/1, as they would write it in the UK where the BBC is. And 181 is the 42nd prime, and guns 42. And again, the focus is disarming. But they had to bring this to us 19 months later about the 19 dead children at Robb Elementary. And again, literally nothing new in this story, all the same stuff we've already heard. But again, just the psychological impact. That is why they do these things, to impact people, to grab their emotions, and then debate them into giving up their rights and liberties. And again, the other key number that they keep throwing out, one of CNN's top headlines all day was, the 77 minutes of, failure by the police department. And notice in Gematria, police department 77, like police officer, like secret society. Who can forget about Flight 77 crashing into the 77-foot tall Pentagon 77 minutes after the flight took off on September 11th, which in words, September 11th equals 77, like World Trade Center, like United States, like how that day changed the nation, like how these stories are meant to change the nation, like by undermining our rights and liberties. But yeah, 77 minutes. And, the other thing about 118, you might recall that Joe Biden, he went down to Texas after this shooting and he waited till May 29th, which is JFK's birthday. JFK, who died from gun violence in Texas. Biden waited until that day to go down there. And with regards to 118, Dallas, Texas in Gematria equals 118. In Jewish Gematria, both death and homicide equal 118. It's always a fateful number. We've talked about it a bazillion times. So also, just on this day, with these numbers related to death, again, bringing up, one of the more tragic stories in recent times for the nation. So, and we've been talking about the whole chaos code with this thing from day one, only for this to be the BBC's headline today. And let's not forget, the BBC, just like the New York Times, always been run by Jesuits. The guy who runs the New York Times right now formerly ran the BBC. And let's not forget that British Broadcasting Corporation has that 201 connection either. And let's not forget that this shooting happened in Matthew McConaughey's hometown 201 days from his birthday. And then he went to the White House and advocated for getting rid of the Second Amendment while holding up a pair of green Converse, which equals 201, as the NBA Finals were tipping off with the Boston Celtics. And Joe Biden's Secret Service name is Celtic, right? Boston, very Catholic. Massachusetts, where the Kennedys are from. Rituals, people controlling your rigged NBA, your rigged Oval Office, your rigged news cycle. Let's not forget what they did with the Yankees and Astros game the day of the Uvalde shooting. You might recall there was a gentleman for the Yankees. It was a comeback game for the Yankees that night. They won the game the day of the Uvalde shooting in Texas, and they won the game on the bat of a guy from Texas. Can't even think of his name right now, but if you go back and look up the box score for the Yankees-Astros game that night, you'll see that the man who knocked in the winning RBIs, he's from nearby Uvalde. And then the Yankees, I forget if it was a 12-game winning streak or a 15-game winning streak, because the word gun is 15 forwards and 12 in reverse. But they either had a 15 or 12-game winning streak that started with Uvalde, and the last win that the Yankees got in that winning streak was the day of the judge ruling in favor of people who do concealed carry in New York. So you could just see how all these rituals were connected. We talked about all this back in 2022. But yeah, just sports, news, all this stuff scripted. So they can blame this on some young let's not forget. The first teacher who was reported dead from the Uvalde shooting, she looked exactly like a teacher who supposedly died at Sandy Hook. Go back and cover that piece as well. I got my video taken down for showing that at the time, but it's a fact. Look into the teacher who died at Sandy Hook and look into the teacher who died at Uvalde. They look like the exact same person. And let's not forget that teacher was married to the police chief who had just ran the shooting drill at the high school in the same town in Texas, the same high school where the shooter supposedly went to. And again, I was going to say they can blame it on that kid all they want, but these are ultimately things being carried out at a federal level, at an Illuminati level. That's why it's all connected, from the Rigged Sports League, again, to the Rigged News, to the Rigged Oval Office. JFK dead at 46, Joe Biden number 46, elected 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday, after his son Beau Biden dies at age 46, when in Gematria Catholic equals 46 like sacrifice. Going with the 46 books in the Old Testament and Genesis 46 being about sacrifice. We know what just happened yesterday to the Warriors coach on the day that Preparing for Disease X went live. The coach dead at 46 months after the pandemic was declared. That was declared by the WHO, which equals 46. But anyway, like virus equals 46. But anyway, Michelle Obama, on her birthday, right? On her 60th birthday, the New York Post puts out a story about why she could become the Democratic nominee in the upcoming election. And we've been talking about this for 2 years, why this could happen. If Biden kicks the bucket or has to leave office or can't run for the next one, which is highly probable. But notice, again, it's the 60th election upcoming. Michelle turned 60 yesterday, the day the New York Post wrote this article. And who wrote the article for the New York Post? Cindy Adams, whose name in Gematria equals 60, right? Just like Donald Trump equals 60, and he's had his bazillion 60 rituals already for the 60th election. But to go back in time, we pointed out how when her book came out, again, here, let me just open up my old post on this. So this post is from July 21st, 2022. This actually happened on my birthday. This was my 39th birthday, July 21st. But here's what we pointed out that day. The book was announced on July 21st that it was coming out, and the release date was November 15th, 2022, which is the day it released. And we pointed out then how it was interesting how from November 15th, 2022 to the election was 721 days, like how it was announced that it would come out that day on 7/21. That's the day in history that the Jesuit suppression ended. But also, more importantly, from the release of the book to the election that's upcoming now, later this year, November 5th, 2024, Guy Fawkes Day, a special day to the Jesuits, is 103 weeks. And the name Obama has gematria of 103. And also from Obama's birthday, August 4th, to the release of the book was 103 days later. And notice Obama was 60 years old when it was announced, right, that this book was coming out by Michelle. And again, July 21st, the day leaving 163 days left in the year. Barack Hussein Obama's 163. 163 is the 38th prime. Election equals 38. But the light we carry, right? The lights, the illuminated ones, the Jesuits, the Illuminati founded by a Jesuit. Let's not forget when they blew up Beirut 201 days after Michelle's birthday. It fell that way in 2020 because it was a leap year. And they blew it up on Barack's birthday when the last time we heard about an explosion in Beirut was the Beirut barracks bombing, where barracks is a word very similar to Barack. And again, Barack's birthday is 8/4. Jesuit, the singular, is 84. The Jesuits are known for trying to blow up British Parliament on Guy Fawkes Day with fireworks. They said the explosion in Beirut happened at a fireworks factory, but remember, it like quaked a huge area. It's like, oh, I'm sure. What was it, like M80 times bazillion? I mean, come on. Anyway. Now, by the way, Michelle Obama, forwards and backwards, 5472, just like Jesuit order. And just wait till we get to the address of the Jesuit headquarters. The Church of the Gesu. Okay. Portland's power outage. So this power outage began January 13th. A lot of the city's been without power throughout this entire period of time. And power was just fully restored to Portland today, January 18th. So 5 days later. And again, it's been in the teens there in Portland. They're not used to it being this cold there, just like a lot of the country's not used to it being this cold. You know, it's been like 8 degrees here all week, which is abnormally cold. I'm not that far from Portland, but I'm on the colder side of the state because we're not insulated by the mountains in the ocean. I'm east of the mountains, whereas Portland's for people who don't know, the reason the Pacific Northwest is so wet is because the ocean and the mountains, it creates this climate of wetness. East of the mountains, it's a lot drier, but it's also a lot colder in the winter, and it's also a lot hotter in the summer. It's high desert out here. Anyway, it's freezing cold all over the nation right now. And Portland, it's super cold, way colder than they're used to having it, and they've been without power. So, The day that this happened, Tucker Carlson, and again, a lot of people think this guy is some kind of white hat or truth teller. I mean, you have to be sound asleep, and you must have just thought you woke up just the other day if you think Tucker Carlson's some kind of truth teller. Tucker Carlson, after 9/11 happened, worked on CNN, and he was one of the people on TV all the time on the show Crossfire, ridiculing anyone questioning 9/11 and telling them they should move out of the country and they're wacko conspiracy nuts. Tucker Carlson's a human piece of shit. Okay. Period. End of discussion. He doesn't stand for any truth. He's about politics. He's a partisan hack. He's a human fraud. And he's one of these puppets on strings, too. But you just have to ask yourself, what are the odds that he said, be prepared, the grid is going down, and did this podcast the same day the power went out in Portland? And you can go back to when I first started doing this, because at the time I started doing this work, Portland was having this really weird simulation, the biggest simulation ever of what would happen if a nuke went off in a city. And it was called, God, something Top Off 4, maybe. I think it was called Top Off 4 if you want to look it up. But when that happened, it made me really think about what Portland's nickname is. And I'd never really thought about it before growing up in Portland. But I was like, God, the nickname of my home city is RIP City, RIP City. And I was like, biggest nuclear simulation. And then I started thinking, I was like, okay, Oregon's the only state that equals 74, like nuclear 74, like weapons 74, like energy 74. I was like, I wonder if we could see some really bad things happen to Portland as this tyrannical agenda continues to push forward in this nation. And I mean, Portland's been one of the worst cities to live in the last decade. Antifa, Donald Trump experimenting with this federal police there. Remember when Donald Trump brought out the secret federal police and they first were used in Portland? Again, federal equals 33, like Oregon's the 33rd state. But anyhow, this is in the last few years, this is the second big power outage in Portland that's lasted a week in a really cold time of year. The last time was the Valentine's Day one, which we predicted in advance. But anyway, just think about it. January 13th, 13/1, like 131, blackouts 131, which is common terminology for a power outage. Same day, shit-stained Tucker Carlson puts out his video. And by the way, be prepared, the grid is going down. That phrase equals 144, like Jesuit order. And I forget, Tucker's got Catholic school education too. Who doesn't in the media? But the other thing about January 13th, 2024 is it was a date with 58 numerology. And the word power itself is 58. The power went out on this day. And again, there's really not an explanation why in modern times that they can't get the power grid back up in a modern city faster than this. And what they kept doing to the people in Portland is they kept telling them, oh, we're going to have the grid back up tomorrow. Oh, actually, it's going to be the next day now. Oh, actually, it's going to be the next day now. The next day now. So people are like, what the hell is going on? Why is the power not getting turned back on? And I want to show you what's funny about the day they put it back on. First of all, though, I do want to remind you, Oregon, like Arizona, the states have a Valentine's Day birthday. Arizona is actually known as the Valentine's Day state. Of course, Valentine's Day is the 45th day of the year, which is a big ritual number. Portland's also on the 45th parallel north. The power outage went out 32 days before the state's birthday, and both power and America are 32. And remember, part of how we predicted the Valentine's Day blackouts the other year was thanks to the Public Enemy album that came out just before that, What You Gonna Do When the Grid Goes Down, that shows Arizona on the cover, the Valentine's Day state. And that album came out 142 days before Valentine's Day, like how the date can be written 14/2, like 142. Again, it was also 322 days after Klaus Schwab's birthday, who runs the World Economic Forum, that has been doing all the simulations for the grid going down. You know, that's another thing they've been simulating yesterday, Disease X. In the past, they've been simulating the cooties virus. And again, the things they simulate become the reality. But if you haven't seen my work from years ago when this album came out, you should go back and check that out because there's actually a lot to it. What you gonna do when the grid goes down? But look at this. The day that they fully restore power to Portland is 118. 118, right? The grid, 118. What was Tucker Carlson's thing called that day? What was his show called? Be prepared. The grid is going down. What's the Public Enemy album called? What you gonna do when the grid goes down? The grid, 118. And here, just to show you the overlap with the grid in Portland, the Portland has a nice little connection with the grid. too bad my sister will never listen to this. She'd think it's all conspiracy theory. But that's why my sister, she's going to end up, ignorance isn't bliss. The grid, 4437. You see that? Look at Portland. 4437, right? And just for the record, Rip City, the nickname of Portland, is also 44. So, again, a reminder, you guys, be prepared because it could happen in your city. Fortunately, my sister's neighbor had a generator, and that's where they stayed through the last week. They stayed at the neighbor's house. They stayed at the neighbor's house who had the generator. The neighbor was prepared. The last time the power went down there, my sister had to stay at my mom's house, and that didn't work out. So she wasn't going to do that again. She probably would have froze to death in her own house before she went back over to my mom's. Anyway, yeah. Okay, in other news on 118. Again, 118, this number of death. In Jewish gematria, both death and homicide equal 118. So we get this headline on 118. World champion pole vaulter Sean Barber dies at 29. And he, I've said this so many times when we've looked at these Olympians who die. It's amazing how many of them have the perfect birthday for the sport they're connected to, and then they die in these perfect rituals for what they're remembered for. And you can just see like the whole thing's a ritual. And my real theory on this is these people really are like test tube babies. And it's like the creator of these people who made them to do these sports and win these medals at these world competitions. They feel like these people are their property, and they know that if you die at a young age, you're more immortalized, you're more remembered. For years they'll probably talk about Sean Barber's name every time the Olympics rolls around. Canada, gold medal athlete. But look at this; it's the same thing over and over. His birthday is May 27th, the 147th day of the year. What was his sport? He was a pole vaulter. Pole vaulter, 147, right? The superstar pole vaulter born on the 147th day of the year. And then the number that's always associated with champions and championship is 131. He's a champion pole vaulter, and he's dead. He died yesterday, January 17th, 131 days before his upcoming birthday. Again, we talk about this number all the time with great sports accomplishment. The word Super Bowl, for example, is also 131. But all the time, the same numbers. And we've seen a lot of stories like this over the years with these, great athletes and their premature deaths. And again, I mean, in a way, it's kind of gross to think about it. If my theory is right, it's kind of gross to really think about. Because how many people are like growing up in a normal family, watching TV, training really hard as a young person because they want to be the next Olympian pro athlete, but it's not. It's just an illusion. You're never going to be it because there's somebody who's literally been manufactured, a test tube baby, if you will, who's being raised for that future position. Like the child watching, thinking they live in some free world where the greatest competition makes it to the top. That's not the way it is. There's people being farmed for these positions. And then this is what happens to them too. And it's like they told you in They Clone Tyrone. And don't forget in They Clone Tyrone when they figure out the secret lab where they're like farming people down in the dungeon underneath the earth. What was the access point to it? It was in the church behind the IHS button. And of course, IHS is Isus Hominum Salvator, the Jesuit motto. They'll say, no, it means in his service. It's in my church too. Yeah, that is true. You go in like almost any church today, there is an IHS, but it began as Isus Hominum Salvator, the Jesuit motto. And remember, all your little Christian churches, they came out of the Protestant Reformation, which really came out of Catholicism. Essentially, it's just like there's no difference between McDonald's and Burger King. At the end of the day, they're the same company with the same gematria. McDonald's equals Burger King equals Freemasonry equals 158. And remember that because when you go in to take your food handler's license test at this day and age, you now need to cook a hamburger to 158 degrees. You don't need to study on the test. Just remember it. Here you guys. And if you don't know that's true, look it up. McDonald's 158, Burger King 158, Freemasonry 158. The Jesuits created on 15/8, the 15th day of the 8th month, and that is what's now on the food handler's test. The hamburger must be cooked to 158 degrees. Isn't it a joke, you guys? I mean, that's like how stupid it is this time we live in. That now the hamburger temperature is like literally in tribute to the corporations and the secret societies that rule over. But then again, so is everything else we're learning in the history book, the His Story book. Okay, Melania Trump's mother's funeral. Look at this, you guys. It's 38 weeks after Melania's birthday, right? It's 218 days after Trump's birthday. And remember, we call this the Trump number. That's why his legacy alert that now goes out, the one that foretold what was going to happen on October 7th this year, which we covered on October 4th when it went out at 2:18 p.m. But again, we call 218 the Trump number. But it's 218 days after Trump's birthday, and it's 118 that they have the funeral after the death of Melania's mother by the numbers. And again, 38 weeks. Death is 38 in the most simple cipher. The English extended cipher, which Derek renamed standard. Some people just call this cipher English gematria. Death is 218. Holy Roman Empire is 218 as well. Like they say, it folded on August 6th, 1806, the 218th day of the year. In Francis Bacon gematria, Trump's 218. And in Jewish gematria, which Derek renamed Latin, death is 118. So on the date 118, 218 days after Trump's birthday, 38 weeks after Melania's. And think about how this has to be. Donald Trump's in an arranged marriage with a woman who's from the same part of the world that Grover Cleveland's wife is from. You know, they said Grover Cleveland had a mail order bride. So does Donald Trump. They said they were both fat lumps on a log, and they are. And now they have all the same numbers once Trump becomes the next split-term president. But yeah, in case you missed last week's coverage of the death of Melania Trump's mother at age 78, right before Donald turned 78, when there's 78 cards in the tarot deck, and Jesse Waters just foretold the election the other week on his show, how Trump will win through tarot cards when the highest cards in the tarot deck are the Trump cards. Another nice joke on his viewership who doesn't get it. But Jesse Waters being on primetime in any cable news network also shows you just like what a joke of the times it is. I mean, that guy is not a serious person. He's just a little goofball who went to Trinity, another Catholic educated one. But yeah, the mother of Melania, Amila Navs, she died on Trump's 210th day of his age, and her name equals 210 in gematria. And again, what more is there really to say? Oh yeah, the death also came a span of 158 days before Trump's upcoming birthday. There's that 158 again. And it goes with his brother dying the other year on the Jesuit order's birthday, 15/8. So, okay, and then here's the things that came across my plate today that I just did not know about, and I just thought, oh my God, how did I not know this? So the Church of the Gesu is literally the Jesuit headquarters for the world in Italy, and the construction date for it was between 1568 and 1584. Again, Catholicism 68, Mathematics 68, Jesuit 84, just big numbers with the Catholic Church and the Jesuits all throughout history. But their address is 54 Piazza del Gesu. Gesu, however you want to say it. 54. I mean, come on, man. Again, the Jesuits are a sun cult. The word sun is 54. Jesuit orders 54. John Carroll's 54. John Carroll established Georgetown at age 54. Right now, you have the E. Jean Carroll latest in-court thing with Trump 54 months after the accusation. Of course, Donald Trump's Jesuit educated. But yeah, I was just like, wow, 54 is the address of the Jesuit headquarters. And again, just cable 54, the enemy of the world, and They Live, where Roddy Piper tweeted that movie was a documentary on the anniversary of the Jesuits being recognized by Rome, only to end up dying prematurely on the anniversary of Ignatius of Loyola's death. And then literally right across the street from the Jesuit headquarters is the Scottish Rite headquarters of Italy. And again, Jesuit priests wrote the rites of the Scottish Rite. And look at the address. Look at the address of this building. The address of the Scottish Rite headquarters is 47. And again, it goes with the Jesuits being founded in France, where the Scottish Rite of France, their compass above the G like Gesu. is set at 47 degrees. And again, the Masons studied the 47th problem of Euclid. France, 47, right? Authority, 47, right? Government, 47. Vatican, 47. Come over here, president, 47. You go back to Rome, Caesar, 47. Republican, 47. Democrat, 47. Trump, 47. I mean, you guys know the list. DC, the letters DC are 47. Again, if you're new here, these four ciphers, alphabetic order forwards, alphabetic order in reverse, both orders with numerology. Wonder how many times that same phrase has come out of my mouth over the last forever. Too many times. And then you know what else? You know what else stands out to me about the zip code here? 100,186, right? 00186. Vatican Hill's got that 186. And I've actually been neglecting the 186 over the years because it does come up a good deal, but usually like it'll be 186 days later, and I'll just say, well, that's a span of 187 days. Because we know what the 187 is, but the 186, it apparently matters too. So I don't know how I didn't know this the whole time, though. I've always known that the rites of the Scottish Rite were written by Jesuit priests, but literally right across the street, right across the street from the Jesuit headquarters is the Scottish Rite of Italy's headquarters, and their address is 47. We're always talking about what is 47. I didn't even know this one. What is 47? We won't forget this one. Oh, man. And I just love that their address is 54. And still nobody will talk about this stuff. What a damn shame. All right. Shout out to Frank, the Truth Tank. You didn't have to do that, Frank. Appreciate it, man. Over here, it's only a little bit after 7 p.m. out here on the West Coast, but I feel like it's 2 in the morning because I've been up from really early today. So, let me see. Anyone got anything good in the chat? If not, I think I'm going to wrap this thing up. It is a damn shame. Indeed, it is. I wish I could know all the people that have a big platform that have been well aware of my work for a long time and had never said one word about it, but sit there and watch in the background. I think there's a long list. They like their money more than the truth and getting free. That's the problem, man. People are just too comfortable. That's why the Illuminati is just too clever. They figured out, I mean, you got to be fair. The people who've built this world around us, I mean, they have given us a lot of luxuries and conveniences that we probably do take for granted. But imagine you didn't have them anymore. I mean, a hot shower. How nice is a hot shower? So it's part of the reason people don't move. They got an abundance of food all over the place. They got hot showers. They got big flat screens that are affordable. It's just like, it's Black Friday. Get a 65-inch TV with a high-res picture for $400. It's like, you couldn't have done. I mean, 20 years ago, a TV like that would have cost you $1 million. They know how to keep people parked on their asses. However, I don't know how people can afford to eat potato chips anymore, man. I don't know how people can still afford potato chips. I'm like, oh my God, are people paying $5 for a bag of chips these days? Unbelievable. Yeah, exactly. Electricity, exactly. That's what I mean. Just like there's all these luxuries all around us, and it's what keeps people parked where they are. So, yeah, Paris is on the 48th meridian. Yep, just like Illuminati's 48, indeed. Yeah, anyway, speaking of hot showers, I need to take one because I don't know about you guys, but like when I sit and I work, I always get sweaty and then I stink. It's just like, Your body's not meant to that's when I smell bad, is like when I sit too long and I'm working. I was just trying to fly out and keep up with all this news. We had to drive all over the place today. Sweet lady had 3 different medical appointments. And anyway. All right, guys. Have a good rest of your evening. And thanks again to everyone who hits the like and the share. And we'll see what tomorrow brings us, January 19th. 119. Talking about war with Iran and Pakistan. You know, just all the dominoes falling right now. Iran and Pakistan, though, that's an interesting one. We'll see. 119. I'm just thinking for a minute. That's going to be 104 days after the war began in Israel. January 20th. The 201st day of the nation's age is 2 days away. January 21st, the anniversary of them confirming the cooties in the U.S., the 4th anniversary already. Got some interesting dates coming up. Yeah, we'll probably be busy in the days ahead, so we'll leave it there for now, you guys. And again, if the 3,000 people are out there that abandoned supporting the work in the last couple of years, if you guys could please come back, could use the funds so we can get back on the road and try and wake the world up before it's too late, before what you're going to do when the grid goes down. All right, True Seeker. Till next time.